Recording has been started.
Good morning, our viewers. Welcome to the Strategically Speaking with Dr. Adityanjee. Today is Saturday, February 10th. It is 7 a.m. Eastern Time in United States, and it is 5:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time in New Delhi. Today, we are here for the 20th episode of Strategically Speaking with Dr. Adityanjee, and we have a very distinguished guest. We will be having a conversation with Lieutenant General K Saxena. He is a very well-known personality, does not need an introduction. But for sake of record, General K Saxena was Director General of Army's Air Defense Corps. He is a highly decorated veteran. He has received presidential awards on 3 separate occasions. He is widely published. He has authored 5 books on defense-related issues, on United Nations-related issues. He is regularly featured in newspapers, TV programs, etc. And I'm very proud to say that he has been on our platform several times, including Strategically Speaking with Dr. Adityanjee. He did an earlier program at the beginning of Hamas-Israel war on the issues related to Iron Dome, Israel's Iron Dome ballistic missile shield, etc. Today we will be talking to Lieutenant General Saxena on Hamas-Israel war, where it is going since it started on October 7th. So it's my pleasure indeed to welcome our distinguished guest, General K Saxena. General Saab, welcome to our platform. I'm glad you came back on our platform.
Thank you very much, sir. Your address has been very humbling to me. Very kind of you.
So, General Saab, you have been following this war. We have interviewed earlier on this very platform. The war started without Israel wanting it to be there on October 7th. In the past, Israel-Arab wars have not been that long lasting. When I say wars, I mean hot wars. There is a Cold War going on since 1948 between Arab countries and the State of Israel. So what is the status of the war at this juncture between Israel, Hamas, and some of the other non-state actors?
Dr. Saab, as I speak on 10th of February, I say with great regret that this war is headed towards nowhere except a greater doom, human catastrophe, and loss of civilian life, including innocents, women, children, and the one without arms. Today morning report, 1 hour before I just read, the casualty figures have crossed 27,900 and now touching almost 28,000, with 67,740 injured. Can you just imagine 12,000 of these are children and 7,300 women? Now, my heart shakes when I tell you that the latest statement by the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, he has mentioned, he's ordered his Israeli Defense Forces to prepare for evacuation of Rafah before taking on the Hamas 4 battalions, which he believes are still held there. So, and UN Secretary General, the chief of the International Human Rights Call are all calling it human catastrophe beyond imagination, cannot believe it, and words to that effect. And this war is actually now, can you just imagine the population of Rafah used to be 280,000 people at one time. Today it is more than 1.3 million because all the Palestinian refugees from northern and central Gaza Strip have been pushed inside, and there are grievous and very, very distracting videos of how women, children are getting hammered and battered by this war. I agree that the war was started by the Hamas, the outfit called Hamas, which started the war on 7th October, as you mentioned. But taking it this far now has become a greatest human casualty. The latest statement by the United Nations Security Council, United Nations UN Security Secretary General is the Gazans are dying. They don't know where to go. There is a picture of the Gazians now in Rafah, southern city. Millions of them are just roaming around. They don't know what to do, where to go, and a looming danger of destruction refers to them. Now, this is one part of Israel. What is happening to Hamas? Now, Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister, said, I have two war aims. First is total annihilation of Hamas from this face of the planet. And second, bringing back all the hostages. Has he achieved any one of these two war aims? The answer is no. Why? Because if you read yesterday's newspaper and Reuters report, it is even after destroying so much of Hamas soldiers, more than 11,000 have been killed as per him, the Hamas is resurfacing in the northern Gaza Strip. What is total destruction of Hamas? This is not even defined. This is not even defined because Hamas is not only restricted to Gaza Strip. It is not one time live and kill. It is re-emerging. It will re-emerge. It is already re-emerging. It is establishing its control. And other thing is there is no respite in sight. Why respite in sight? Because the statement, the ceasefire or the pause statement which they given, truce plan, 135 days truce plan, has been totally rejected by Israeli Prime Minister, saying it as delusional demand. Although President Biden has also said that Israeli attack on Rafah is little over the top. So it is death and destruction with no hope in sight. That is the reason I maintain that this war is heading nowhere. That is what is my response to your first question.
So, when there was war in 1971 in what we now know as Bangladesh, as the war started, there were almost 10 million refugees that fled the territory of Bangladesh and came to India. When war in Ukraine started, Russia invaded Ukraine. There were Ukrainian refugees in the neighboring East European countries, including Poland, etc. Here we see that war started on October 7th. Israel did not invite the war. Hamas started the war. Why is that the neighboring Arab country south of Rafah is not allowing the refugees, Gazan refugees?
This is a very important and question which has a very tricky answer. Now, the Gaza Strip totally is of 41 kilometers or 25 miles end to end, that is north to south, and it has got only three crossings. One is called the Erez and is Shalom, and third one is Rafah. What is happening is Egypt, which is holding the Rafah crossing, is the only country which is responsible to allow or disallow, or has got the right to allow or disallow the refugees. Now what happens? Egypt is also not in a very great position to receive the refugees. Today, if they get into floods on the Sinai Peninsula, starting from Rafah, they will make as it is very, very limited resources, and the country is also suffering economic stress at the moment. The inflation has crossed 7.6%, and even the population of Egypt is not in that healthy state of well-being to receive a flood of refugees. That is the reason initially Rafah never allowed and also one more fact is that Egypt and US relations have been on a good keel. At the moment when Israel is being supported by US, Egypt and Qatar, which are now acting as mediatory, also have to keep this equation in mind. The point is that 2.4 million population of Gaza having thrown or pushed right from northern borders to central Al-Ilahi district to Khan Yunis and now to Rafah have nowhere to go. Even if, let's say, Syria says, or let's say Iran says, or let's say Jordan, Iraq, anybody says, I will lift the refugees and bring. Where is the way to take out anybody from the Gaza Strip? They all have to come through Rafah crossing. Rafah crossing, they do not want. Egypt is very hesitant to allow the floodgates of refugees into its own country and also allow the aid to go forward. Aid it may or may not allow as per the terms of the truth. The problem is that they are not in a position to take in this many refugees, 1.3 million now waiting in the Rafah crossing.
So,
That is the
General Saab, Egypt gets an annual aid of more than $2 billion from United States. There are Arab League countries that are resource rich. I think there's the issue that Egyptian economy is weak at this point in time. You know, if we see humanitarian standards and human rights, yes, we can say that Israel may be violating the human rights. There's a court, International Court of Justice opinion. But the behavior of Egypt as a country, as an Arab country, cannot be lauded just because you are saying that our economy is weak. India did not show this behavior at the time of Bangladesh war, and you and I know that there was a Bangladesh tax and the postage stamps went up. A poor country like India hosted refugees from Bangladesh, more than 10 million.
I will go a step forward by saying not only not lauded, it should be condemned, because at one point in time there are a humanitarian or existential danger on a population as high as 1 million plus, and still the country does not let the refugees come inside from the Rafah border is nothing but shameful, absolutely shameful. And the behavior which Egypt is showing, aid or no aid, inflation or no inflation, that is the only I try to bring out that that there are not many factors in favor of not allowing. It is a question of that country's behavior of not allowing the refugees to come this side, and that is condemnable. I agree. Like now, take your memory to Myanmar. Myanmar, we had initially let the border people, we have an agreement with them that till 16 kilometers inside Indian border, from Myanmar people can come in and they can go. It is only a day for yesterday when the junta was defeated out from the border town and our Kaladan project came into a total halt. We had said, sorry, we'll have to fence the border because our hands are tied, because you will become a great problem in our countries, bring militancy and bring your war into our land. That is where our hands are cut. But there is no hands being cut of Egypt at this moment. Israel has never threatened Egypt after their pact if they allow the Rafah crossing. In fact, Israel is wanting the population to evacuate. Where will they evacuate? Unless and until Rafah is opened, where will they evacuate? They cannot fly away. There is no airfields operating. They cannot sail away. There are no ships there. But only way to go across is Rafah, which is not being allowed, is quite condemnable.
So, General Saxena, you said that, Benjamin Netanyahu has made a pledge that he will, cause total annihilation of Hamas. When the war started, Hamas started with a lot of rocket attacks, actually, hundreds and thousands of rocket attacks. Not only Hamas, but also Hezbollah also fired some rockets. What is the, wherewithal of these two terrorist organizations, these two non-state actors? Have they depleted their strength in terms of fighters, in terms of ammunition, in terms of rocketry? What is the strength that they are able to endure against Israel?
It surprises all the researchers and analysts to actually measure up the strength of Hamas and Hezbollah into their range and depth. A trailer of this was shown by Israel in their attack on 28th January at Khan Yunus, when they said that on the board, on the line north-south highway which connects the Khan Yunus down to south from north, there are 1.5 kilometer of underground tunnel, which is nothing but the rocket making factories, making all sorts of rockets, starting from the short range 12, 20, 40 kilometers, right up to mortars and anti-tank missiles, and thousands of them are stored in this. Not only in the war of 2003, 2002 and then 2010, they could fire thousands of rockets in a matter of 24 to 48 hours. Now, what is all this? From where everything is happening? Now, as we all know, that Iran's proxies, they are Iran's proxies with the effort of $350 million support to these proxies every year, about $1 million going into 100 million per year to Hezbollah going in, something like that going to the Hamas. They have a huge potential. They are rocket making factories now. The short range rocket, which are called the Qassam rockets, are 12, 20, 40 kilometers. That is simple, small ones. Israel-based, Iranian-made rockets of Fazl series. As I've told earlier also, Fazl 3 and 5 are 43 kilometers and 75 kilometers. Then they got M series of rocket, which were discovered in Khan Yunis, M65 and 75. That is their ranges. Then J series, J80 and 90. And finally, the Khyber series of rockets, 120 kilometer range, 160 kilometer range. Now, all this, how it has happened? It has happened because there has been a continuous financial support. There's a continuous support of engineers, the continuous support of making technology, know-how of how to make unguided rockets, how to make propellant. They started by making propellant from sugar nitrate, sugar and potassium nitrate. That is the very basic propellant of a rocket. Today they are making sophisticated rockets, they are now claiming that they can even carry something like 90 kgs of fragmented warhead and can carry up to a range of 100 to 120 kilometers. Now, this is only a small game. This is not a big game. The big game is Hezbollah. Hezbollah with 100,000 fighters is not only just in rockets. Rockets, of course, they have all, every type of rocket. They got 107 millimeter, 81 millimeter, Falk series from Iran, from 110 kilometers, Shaheen series from Iran, Katyusha series from Iran, Fajr series, Khyber series, Zalzal series, starting from a 8 kilometer to 400 kilometers. That is one issue. What about the anti-tank weapons? Anti-tank weapons of Hezbollah will put us in shame. 83, Malyutka, 2.5 kilometers, 84 from Sweden, 85 Concords from Russia, RPG-30 from Russia, 80-13 from Russia, 1840 Cornet, and SA-22. Don't just talk of anti-tank. They also have strong air defense weapons. They have manpads, they have Gremlin manpad, they have Igla manpad, they have Grizzly medium range surface-to-air missile system, Buck M2 system missiles, ground missiles, and SA-22 Pantsir. A huge arsenal. This arsenal has been built over a long period of time from Iran when the war in Syria was going on, and it has today. Can you just imagine? Israel just attacked after the Shal Arauri was taken out and Hezbollah commanders were taken out. They attacked 17 attacks in 2 hours with various types of rockets on northern border. There was a talk, can Israel face a two-front war? Now with Hezbollah, the power is little different. The equation is little different. Even Hamas. Now killing a militant organization is not like killing and beheading somebody, finishing. Why Israel, if you take 1967 war, 1973 war, Israeli army is a conventional army. It can defeat conventional armies over large stretches of land. But when it comes to dealing with urban warfare, when it comes to dealing with trench warfare, when it comes to dealing with militants hiding in densely populated areas, it is not that easy defeat or victory. This is a very amorphous thing. Like somebody questioned Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, what is defined by killing or defeating Hamas or annihilating Hamas? That itself is not defined. Today, IDF has killed Hamas from northern Gaza, right? IDF has killed Hamas from central Gaza. Today's report, Gaza, northern Gaza resurfaces with Hamas control. Doctors working in makeshift, commanders coming on board. It is like a parasite. It is like a dimak. Even if you kill the dimak from one side, it builds again. It is a difficult call for IDF to take on. That is what I wanted to give you a glimpse of what is Hamas.
When the war started, the estimate was that Hamas has around 20,000 trained fighters. What is the strength of Hamas's militants at this point in time?
If you go by that, and there are actually a number of figures starting from 20,000 to 35,000, and there are also a number of figures which are talking about how many militants, how many Hamas cadres have been killed. As per the statement of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, 2-3 days back, he says some 10,000 Hamas fighters have been killed. So still that leaves, by your calculation, about 10,000, but some other calculations also show that something about 50 to 60% of Hamas is still very much alive. As per the statement by Israeli Defense Forces, they say that in Rafah, 4 battalions of Hamas are intact. If 4 battalions are intact, there are also a lot of Hamas is intact in 800 tunnels, out of which only 1,500 tunnels, out of which only 800 plus have been detected and partly destroyed by Hamas. What about 1,500 minus 800 is equal to 700, 700 tunnels. Those many Hamas cadres, those many hostages are all intact. It is not easy to kill an enemy sitting in 1,500 tunnels, 20 to 30 meter deep and scattered all across the densely populated space.
General Saab, when we go back to 1961-67 war that lasted, I think, for 7 days, there were 13 Arab countries that had attacked Israel. So at that time, Israel showed the tenacity and chutzpah of dealing with a multi-front war. Now this war from single front is becoming two-front war, one with Hamas, one with Hezbollah on the north. Does Israel of 2024 have the capability, does the IDF have capability to sustain a prolonged two-front war?
These two wars, if you take the Arab-Israeli war, Yom Kippur War, if you take the 1967-1973 Yom Kippur War, they were a war of a different kind. They were a war which in our India-Pakistan contest, we used to talk about them in 1990s, 1980s, and 1980s, 1990s, and around the turn of the century. What are those wars? Conventional wars limited to land warfare in a conventional mode in a short, swift action, which involves a tremendous amount of tenacity of movement, tenacity of, and also the power of air power played up in a great extent to carry out a preemptive strike, soften up the enemy in a conventional mode, then blitzkrieg operation by our own tank armored personal carrier, tanks and armored personal carrier, and rushing into or taking a huge territories and defeating conventional army. Those is a conventional mode war for which the IDF is well suited. And also, why every time it came to a halt in a short period of time? Because Israel's power to, first of all, carry out tremendous amount of destruction from air or air strikes or preemptive air strike, taking control of the air and achieving a favorable air situation, stroke air superiority of some kind, and in that causing tremendous amount of death and destruction on the enemy, not only personal but war waging equipment, and then mopping up by your tank force. Nothing like this is taking place in Hamas. Airstrikes are taking place, but airstrikes are not killing the enemy in a conventional mode. They are sitting inside the trenches, and what is getting killed are civilian innocent population and the infrastructure, which is nothing but ruins now. That is one issue. Second is, those were conventional war. This is urban warfare. Those were conventional enemies, conventional armies. These are militant groups. Militant groups which have got tremendous amount of firepower and have got very secure bases. Even if you do airstrikes, you can do nothing about the trenches. You have to find the shaft, you have to enter inside, or you have to block the tunnel at the cost of losing your own hostages. You have to flood the tunnel. You have to do whatever. Tunnel by tunnel, shaft by shaft, urban warfare will demand, casualties will give tremendous amount of staying power to a militant group. That is the difference between that war and this war. You say they have, IDF has shown tenacity. IDF will show tenacity because it is only, what is it expanding? It is expanding an airstrike and ammunition which it is own factories make, and US support and aid keeps coming. Number two, the ground forces have not actually played out in huge numbers on battalions like they take place in a conventional war. It can sustain, IDF can sustain operations in, what is Gaza, 41-kilometer stretch. What is urban fighting? Companies and battalions are fighting. If you ask Colonel Voroni of 112 Battalion of Israel, he's given a statement. He says it is like entering an ant hill and killing one ant at a time. That is the experience of Israeli commanders now. It was not in 1967 and 73. That is where is the subtle difference between these two scenarios.
So the other difference was that in 1967, there were no hostages. On day one, on October 7th, Hamas took hundreds of Israeli hostages and in a way hobbled Israel, the IDF, because they had always to be mindful that they don't kill their own fellow citizens that were taken as hostage by Hamas. So what is the situation of hostages? Prime Minister Netanyahu has not been able to repatriate all the hostages. And I believe that 130 still remain with Hamas.
Now, if you look at the video of ghastly video of 7th October, you will very clearly see two actions. One action was by the militants carrying the arms and shooting openly and randomly on the population. Another group with their arms slung to the side, not firing, but only capturing people, throwing them either in the vehicles or there were two separate groups. The Hamas, when it entered 7th October, it had the strategy not only will scare the population here, we will take maximum hostages, because they know what is the pawn of war. The pawn of war is hostages. Israel, even for one soldier, it released some 3,500 prisoners of war of Palestine way back. Now today they had taken more than 230 people as hostages. They're not all ideas. They're women, they're children, they're elderly, they're sick, they're whatever they have taken. Now those numbers have been identified by Israel, and Hamas knows very well that their trump card is hostages. There are so much crisis going on in Israel on Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, pressure on him, his popularity is dropped. Somebody is telling, remove him from the war cabinet. Somebody is saying, if you have elections today, he will lose. There are videos, there are shows in which their brand theme is, the grand theme being played is bring them home. Bring them home. Everybody is shouting and people are losing their patience. They say that Benjamin Netanyahu's plan of this war is not letting the will not let our hostages come. And the gravest news which came is out of 230, 100 got released, 31 of them have been pronounced dead, and the remains have not reached the body. Imagine the tremendous psychological pressure being built. The greatest pawn in the hand of Hamas is not weapons, not rockets, not tanks. They don't have rockets. They have prisoners of war. They have hostages. And in that hostages, they are saying, now if you read the 135 days truce plan, what is the truce plan? First 45 days, 45 days, 45 days, 3 stages. They say out of 100, we will only release all families, number one, all the males less than 19, all females which are less than 19, and elderly and sick. These are the persons they say will only release elderly and sick, and males under 19 which are not IDF conflict. And what they want in return? 1,500 prisoners out of 5,200 held. 500 out of them have to be serving life sentence. 60,000 temporary homes, 200,000 tents, and Gazians to return to home freely, and all crossings on Gaza to be open. That is the Erez and Shalom. Imagine the bargaining power of these all females, males under 19, and elderly and sick. This is the bargaining power of this. Then comes the male, and then comes the all. This is the situation. Israel is not fighting a war only with Hamas. Israel is fighting a war of its own inside with its population, which are catching the neck of Benjamin Netanyahu, and every day the pressure is mounting, bring them home. That is why the Hamas, when it attacked, they knew, besides, what is there to scare a civilian population? 2 rounds you fire, they will be scared. Their main aim was, imagine picking up 230 people. If you have to pick up 230 people, at least you should have more than 100 people of your picking them up, throwing them in the vehicle, putting them on the mobiles, and rushing them out of the place of action. Imagine, what is the effort? What is the game plan? What is the mind of a terrorist? Mind of a terrorist is catch the pawn, catch what is tradable. These civilians killed are nothing. I have to take them so that I can bargain. And the hostage scene today is a total no-go. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said, we are close to total victory, and therefore I will allow this disillusioned demand of Hamas to go through. However hard that Qatar is trying, Egypt is trying, US is trying, US Secretary of State Mr. Blinken has made 6 trips. President Biden has said his plans of Israel are over the top. Whatever may happen, what is at stake are those 100 people which are nowhere to be seen at the moment, and that is the trump card in the hand of Hamas. And I do not see any breakthrough in this at present moment. Every person, let me tell you, every person of the hostage will be traded for a lot of exchange value. Wait and see how the hostage crisis will build up.
So the hostage crisis brings two questions. So one is that there are some unconfirmed reports that Hamas has also demanded release of Marwan Barghouti from Israeli prison. And their game plan is that Marwan Barghouti can become a kind of Palestinian Nelson Mandela because the Palestinian Authority president, Abu Mazen, is 88 years old and there's need for some sort of succession plan. And in that plan, Marwan Barghouti fits as the populist leader of Palestinians on West Bank. Is it true that Hamas has put that demand there for release of Marwan Barghouti also as part of the hostage deal?
Yeah, I also have read the similar reports that they will want to encash the hostages' value in this manner, but it is unlikely to pan out in this manner. If you look at what is happening in southern Gaza, if you look at the determination, not determination, rigidity, I will use the word rigidity of the Israeli Prime Minister and his combat and his army chief, who are hell-bent, I will say hell-bent, on trying to push their weight across Gaza, and international community is helplessly watching. The hostages are becoming a very lucrative thing by the day, and it will be traded for much greater value than only becoming a Nelson Mandela of Palestine. That is my personal view. If you hear two, three things, I also heard that there is a crisis of sort between Hezbollah leadership, Hamas leadership of Yahya Sinwar and Honey, Ismail Honey, in which they are differing, Honey, in which they are differing with their approach to hostage. This is what brings me to your point. One is asking for glorification and achieving a glory in releasing the hostages and achieving a populous status there. And other is saying that trade the hostage for, give us a pause at the moment. We are pushed against the wall and I want immediate referral or immediate pause from the war, and that thing. So it is all at the moment in a big imbroglio. But my reading of the situation is that the hostage crisis, hostage is the only pawn in the hand of Hamas. They will trade it like gold, and they will trade it one on one, with one on this side and many on the other.
So there was some coordination between Israel and Qatar in the initial hostage relief, initial tranche of hostages that were released. But again, there are reports that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has complained that Qatar's behavior has become very problematical in any kind of negotiations about release of hostages. How far that is true?
I think that there is some substance in saying that. And why this happened when the statement of the Prime Minister came. Actually, what happened was that after the initial exchange, which was engineered by Qatar and Egypt and US, initially happened. Then it was a report that 21 hostages are very, very sick. They require immediate medication. And the medication was planned to be rushed through the International Red Cross. So instead of Hamas saying that we will not let the medicines or the aid or whatever to the ailing hostages through Red Cross, it has to come via Qatar. And Qatar at that time did not oppose the idea. They said that the aid or the medication or the survival of the people has to come from Israel to Qatar, Qatar to International Red Cross, International Red Cross to the Hamas. And that is where Prime Minister remarked that the behavior of Qatar in acting as a mediator has not been very satisfactory. And that is the reason that gone past that stage. Today, the stage is that Qatar is being seen as a major player along with Egypt and US, and the President Thani who's there is he's a sole major player in doing what is happening with 135 days, and he himself has given a statement day before yesterday that he sees a hope in the Israeli response or the Hamas's response, but then his hopes got crushed when Prime Minister Netanyahu clearly mentioned that I fully and totally reject the proposal. So that was earlier, and this is the state now.
So Hamas's objective always was to instigate this mayhem and draw other Arab countries into a wider regional war. And we have seen that most of the Arab countries have refrained from directly joining the war, except for another terror group, which are Houthi rebels. They have gone on record with their attacks on merchant navy ships that they want to internationalize the situation till this war is stopped and Israel is punished, etc., etc. A wider Middle East war has not happened, but Houthi rebels in Yemen are continuing to attack one way or the other shipping vessels in the Red Sea zone.
Actually, Dr. Saab, if you see, when you put the milk on fire, actually the whole milk does not boil over all at a time. It starts to boil and it starts to drip over. And after some time, the boil builds to such a level that a large milk spills over. Now I'll give you a simile to this. Initially, what happened, it was Israel and Hamas on the day of 7th October, if you take, almost the entire Arab world, and faraway countries, even like Russia, China, everybody said that, even our own Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, had condemned the terror attack, mark the word, terror attack on Israel on 7th October. Now, the way the Israel has unfolded its offensive against Hamas and the way the human tragedy has unfolded in terms of so many deaths of civilians, and it is spilling over slowly. Now, I will show you the signs of spilling over. First of all, you take Iran, that of course is the most important pawn in this. Not only it is supporting the Hamas, the Houthis, the Islamic resistance, the Palestinian Authority, and the Syrian rebels, all they are the main mother. They're the mother on which all these cubs the wolves are all around. They have already said, day before yesterday, not day before, 2-3 days back, the president, the ultimate authority in Iran has warned the US of a all-out war. What has happened? The Islamic resistance, IRI, has got its, backed by Iran, Shiite Iran, has got its tentacles not only in Iran, it has got its tentacles in Iraq, in Jordan, in Syria. There are as much as 165 and counting attacks on US, and therefore the US has already struck targets and on 20th January, we all know that 3 US servicemen were killed, and thereafter the US attacks have already happened in Syria, in Jordan, in Iraq. Yesterday they took out Wasim Mohammed of Kataib Hezbollah, which is one of the strongest factions of the Iraqi Islamic Guard and Islamic resistance. So you see this from US side is spilling over into this. Now look at other side. Look at the side of it is not only war which is happening in weapon term. Look at Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, day before yesterday, when you met the Crown Prince met Mr. Blinken, he said any talk with Israel will have two conditions: stopping of the war and Number two condition is the humanitarian stopping of the war and recognition of an independent state of Palestine. So at one point in time, before 7th October, if you know, the Israel and Saudi Arabia were at the verge of forging relationship and burying their differences. So Iraq, Israel, Saudi Arabia. Now Yemen. Yemen Houthis are actually controlling 2/3 of their own country, and they are the ruling junta, if you call them, more than the government. They have on their own Houthis. Who are Houthis? Houthis is not a Houthi, it's a Harkat Insan. Actually, an Iranian-backed group who actually fought Saudi Arabia, who killed, who launched kamikaze drone attacks on Saudi oil states of Arab and Khurais, and 6.5 billion oil bottles, this thing were lost of the population. Produce of that month has gone. The same Houthis are now on their own. They are not deterred by the attacks by US and UK and 10 other countries on Yemen. They are not deterred by any other means, which now EU is coming up with this armada. The US has come already with ships from various countries, though Spain, Italy and Germany have, Spain, France and Germany have come out of that. But the idea is another country is now, Houthis are calling the shot. 29 attacks so far and counting, and they are not even bothered of US attacks on them. They're taking on US warships one on. Yes, I can talk about Iraq, I can talk about Jordan, I can talk about Syria, I can talk about Egypt and the Arab world. They're still 4 months time is they are still waiting, or means they are condemning. Condemnation from every country has happened on the Israelis' atrocities of women and children. It is a sign which is showing of spilling. It is that small spillage has already started. Who knows what happens after the Rafah massacre take place, what all happens. It is a very, we are sitting in a power keg. We are sitting on a detonator. This detonator is likely to explode any time, and we need to only pray that the fuse becomes longer and longer. That is where it is as on date.
Yesterday, Prime Minister Netanyahu gave a statement that IDF special operations in Rafah region will be completed in 1 month. Do you have any comments on this time?
Yes. These are all political statements. These are all statements which are made off the cuff. He has also made a statement that I cannot allow Rafah to remain with 4 battalions of Hamas intact. How does he know it is 1 month or half a month? He was also like President Putin wanted to close the special military operation in 4 days. It has taken 2 years and still counting. He can say 1 month, but it will depend on how the Hamas plays out, and what is the guarantee? What is the guarantee that the Hamas does not spring a surprise from the central or northern Gaza onto the Israeli forces operating in the south? That is also a big possibility, because you haven't destroyed them. If you haven't destroyed the enemy, it will erupt again. Now, saying 1 month, like 1 month, why not 29 days? Why not 1.5 months? Why not 2 months? Why not? These are all off the cuff statements. Yes, it is good. He has been a military commander. He knows it will take 1 month. I do not subscribe any credence to the 1 month timeline. It is a war of days and hours. Every hour the war situation is worsening. So what will happen? Whether this war will prolong for 1 month or many months, whether it will halt tomorrow or day after, whether the UN or the US or whether the US will be able to prevail on Israel, most unlikely. Whether the Israeli government, Israeli population's pressure on Netanyahu will bring him down in one way or the other and will force a truce. All these are lying on the table. All these are options, and these can only Almighty knows and the time knows what is going to happen. We know that the situation is dangerously unstable, in a dangerous, unstable, equilibrium. I use the word. All three words are meant.
So yesterday, Moody's rating agency downgraded Israel's credit rating from stable to negative because of the ongoing war. Would that have any implications on continuation of this war as well?
As I read the open source, the total expenditure, now I'll just give you some figures. The question was how long the Israel can afford this war on Gaza. So some analysts said that this war on Gaza has costed Israel $60 billion, number one. Number two, the conscripts which were taken initially amounted to 7% of the workforce in Israel. And a war cabinet has asked for additional $15 billion for the war. It is expending $269 million per day to keep the war on day. 120,000 Israelis have been displaced. So economy, tourism is absolutely down, just not there. Businesses are empty. Labor shortages are taking place in a very, very big manner. The conscription and the mobilization of the reserve force has hit the workforce tremendously. And therefore, nobody is surprised of this downgradation. In fact, the war will become untenable even for Israel in days to come if this spending of $260 million a day continues indefinitely. Israel is not US. It does not have that. Israel is not Russia, which has got such range and depth that can pull the war for 2 years and still sit strong. $60 billion means a lot of Israel, backbone of the GDP. It is asking 15 billion more from the exchequer. 7% force gone, 30,000 conscripts, more it wants. How much its economy can sustain? Therefore, downgradation is only a beginning. More economic crisis is on the table if this war chugs along in this manner.
Is this the end of political career of Benjamin Netanyahu?
I will not write off a commando like Benjamin Netanyahu in such a light statement. Yes, many things are working against him. His war plan, first of all, the first thing which worked against him was the failure of intelligence, total failure of intelligence under his beat, number one. Number two, his appreciation of getting the hostages back has still not happened. In fact, is backfired. Number three, his response to the war, to the Hamas from 7th October onwards has built more enemies than friends. It has also resulted in the casualties of 1,410 Israelis, including 224 IDF soldiers. The hostages are no hope at the moment of coming back. All this on one side. Imagine a scenario in which he is able to pull off a hostage withdrawal. You never know what all the tricks under him. Number one. Number two, suppose the Rafah misadventure, I will call the word misadventure, somehow achieves a degree of annihilation of Hamas, and Egypt is able to push through under UN pressure or US pressure the number of refugees now sitting in Rafah across into the Sinai Peninsula. And these are all wishful thinking. If this happens, then he's got a mass appeal. Don't forget that he's a soldier friend. He's a commando himself. He's the one who conducted a raid on Entebbe. He's the one who is still remembered in Israel as one of the war heroes. Yes, today his chips are down. Today everybody is seeing his doom, but I will not write him off straight away. Let some more time pass. Let Rafah happen. Let hostage crisis mature or demature to some other level. Yes, we will be able to write him off sooner or later, but you never know. A cat has 9 lives, and Benjamin Netanyahu has only lived a few, so you don't really know.
As a soldier, what is your prediction? When will this war end? Because
Uh,
Ukraine lasting more than 2 years still going on.
Sir, this war actually will come to a catastrophic end. That is my reading. What will happen? Netanyahu will remain away from his war aim. There is nothing called or nothing defined as destruction of Hamas. That is not defined only. So we cannot say. Hamas can be weakened, it can be reduced from an area, but there is no guarantee or no certainty that it can be wiped out. It cannot be wiped out. Hamas is not sitting in Gaza. Hamas is sitting in Iran. Hamas is sitting in Lebanon. Hamas is sitting in Qatar. Hamas is sitting in the minds of many Arab leaders. So it is not destruction. Number one. Number two, if the hostages crisis, as it is, I told you where it is. If something unpredictable happens in Rafah, if the human casualty today sitting at 28,000 crosses some catastrophic figures, I only can imagine that some unprecedented pressure will come on Israel to rethink about carrying, because Israel is looking also at its emptying pockets, at its pockets getting emptied very, very fast. They're looking that all. At one point in time, if I was Benjamin Netanyahu, I would have been looking at exit route also at the same time, keeping my war aims intact to be fought another day. I would also be looking at exit route. Hamas is already looking at exit route. Hamas is very much looking at exit route. You read the statements of Yahya Sinwar. He says, give me respite. I am tired and done. What does it mean? A militant organization which is said tired and done means something is wrong somewhere. They are also at the last legs. So it is anybody's guess that this war, otherwise, if the other scenario you take, a hell is waiting to be let loose into a large West Asia war, pulling in US, pulling in the Arab countries, Iran, Iraq, Syria, Jordan, US, Israel, and of course Egypt. It is anybody's guess of what is going to happen. It is something which is a catastrophe beyond the realms of imagination at the current moment.
Well, we hope that the war ends soon. War is always an ugly thing. It's always to be avoided. It's getting protracted with no end in sight, with tremendous humanitarian cost, financial cost to the parties. We do hope that the war does not get enlarged into a much wider regional West Asian war. We are highly thankful to you, General Saxena, for your, incisive analysis and deep insights into the subject. We hope that you will continue to grace our platform. We are very thankful to you. And we shall end this interview with our fervent hope that war comes to an end sooner rather than later. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, sir. Namaskar, sir.